Hey, good afternoon, everyone. It's currently 1 o'clock. We'll give it a few minutes. We'll start in about 2 minutes to give an opportunity for others to join. Thank you. Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining us for the State Water Resources Control Board's Water Rights Fee Stakeholder Meeting. This meeting is being held virtually through the Zoom and webcast platforms and also is being recorded. My name is David Ceccarelli, and I'm the Fee and Revenue Branch Chief within the Division Administrative Services. Today, we have many of the Fee and Revenue Branch staff working behind the scenes to ensure that this meeting runs as smoothly as possible. If any time throughout this event you find that you are having technical difficulties, please email us at waterrightsfees@waterboards.ca.gov. That email is also on the screen currently, and it's also on the agenda handouts that were sent out. From the Water Board's Fee and Revenue Branch, and assisting me today in this presentation is Cassandra White and Jackie Carter. I would like to also introduce John Russell, the Deputy Director of Division Administrative Services, and in a moment, he will be providing some opening comments. For the meeting to run smoothly, let me go over just a few meeting guidelines. 1, individuals attending via Zoom, please use the raise the hand function if you'd like to ask a question or provide a comment, and staff will enable your microphone in the order hands are raised. If you are joining us through the webcast, you can also submit a comment or ask a question by emailing the email on the screen, again, which is waterrightsfees@waterboards.ca.gov. Remember to use the handouts that were sent to you via email. If you do not have the handouts, don't worry. We'll be sharing the documents on the screen. You can also request a copy of the documents after the meeting, or the handouts are posted on the Water Board's fee webpage. For the meeting to run efficiently and stay on track, we are requesting each participant who wants to ask a question to please ask one question at a time. I understand you may have a clarifying question to your original question, and that is accepted. Once your question is fully answered, we're going to move on to the next participant's question, and you will be put back into the order of participants who are requesting to ask a question. In addition, we respect all opinions and input. However, if the discussion starts to move away from the intent of the meeting, which is to discuss water rights and Sigma fees, then I'm going to ask that the participant and I meet offline to coordinate these discussions further and involve the appropriate staff as needed. At this time, let's go ahead and review the agenda. We make it a little bigger there. So item number 2 is the Water Rights Fund budget cost drivers, which is attachment 1 of your handout. Within those cost drivers, there's also a BCP that will be discussed. Item 3, which is attachment 2 of the handout, is the Water Rights Fund condition. Item 4 is a potential fee change proposal related to our Federal Energy Regulatory Commission fees, or better known as FERC. And then item number 5 is we're going to have a discussion on the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act fees. And then we're going to move into open discussion and then next steps, which leads us to our next fee meeting, which is scheduled for July 31st of this year. So with that said, I'm going to toss it to John Russell for a few opening comments here.
Thank you, David. Yeah, just a few introductory comments here. First of all, thank you all for taking a few minutes out of your afternoon to be with us and go over this. The 2 main points I wanted to bring up is the last time we met in the stakeholder meeting, I think we told you that we had a couple of budget reduction drills in process. We didn't have the results of those that we could share with you yet, but we do now. There was a vacancy reduction drill and then an operating budget reduction drill. And the point I wanted to bring up is the second one was about an 8% reduction, and the first one added a couple other percent to the overall reduction. But you might notice that you're not seeing an 8 to 10% reduction in your fees. We'll go over that a little bit later, the reasons for that as we go over the cost drivers. But one of the reasons for that is that the Water Board chose not to take a proportional 8% cut across all of our programs. We did some prioritization and we took cuts out of some of our lower priority programs and left other programs more intact. And the one program that we left almost virtually intact was our drinking water program. Excuse me. So we didn't take any vacancies or budget reductions out of that program, simply to allow it to operate wholesale for the protection of drinking water for all Californians. With that, I also want to note that things are changing rapidly right now. So the numbers you see today are all based on the May revise, but the legislature and the administration will soon be meeting to iron out the final budget for the year. You might have noticed that the Senate had a couple budget hearings today, and then I think they have one tomorrow and maybe even one on Friday. But they're coming up with their two-party solution, which is the legislature's rebuttal or counter proposal to the administration's budget, things that they want to see change in the budget. And the governor's office and the legislators will get together here soon and iron out the final budget. And that will probably cause some of the numbers that we're showing you today to change. We don't know how they're going to change, so we can't really get into that. But our hunch is that they will change a little bit. So with that, I'd really like to encourage you to attend our next stakeholder meeting as well, which is going to be in probably June or July, probably sometime in July, maybe early August. By then, we should have final numbers that we'll be able to show you, and all the proposals that we show you will be a little bit closer to what we're actually going to be taking to the board. So with that, David, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you, John. And just to remind folks, the next stakeholder meeting is July 31st.
July 31st. Thank you.
And again, as John mentioned, the numbers about to be presented to you are based on the May revise. So I'm going to toss it to Jackie at this time.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The first table shows fiscal year 24-25. Thank you. fee budget setting budget of 38.8 million, followed by the governor's May revised fee setting budget for fiscal year 25-26 at just over 37.7 million. As noted, this amount does not include the Sigma BCP, so there's a net difference decrease of 1.1 million or 2.8 million, 2.8%. The second table shows the primary cost drivers of the net difference shown above. The first cost driver is state operations with the decrease of 835,000 or 2.2%. Of note, state ops is primarily employee compensation, healthcare, and retirement costs. Next, we have pro rata continuing the trend from last year. There's another decrease for in the amount of 473,000 or 1.2%. The next cost driver is CDTFA, California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. This allotment covers expenditures related to processing the water rights fund's annual invoices and collection activities. There was an increase of 4,000, representing 0.0%, which is a non-measurable percent change. The next cost driver is the only BCP for fiscal year 25-26, legal resources to respond to federal actions in the amount of 200,000 or 0.5%. The last cost driver is section 4.05, government efficiencies reductions. This is the budget reduction as a result of fiscal year 24-25 budget letter, specifically budget letter 24-24. This item is a decrease of 110,000, which is 0.3%. And that concludes our look at the water rights cost drivers. Overall, the fund has decreased by 1.1 million, which is 2.8%. And before we go to any questions, I'll turn it over to Cassandra for more information on the BCP. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, and good afternoon. So the one BCP we had this year was legal resources to respond to federal actions. The California Environmental Protection Agency, the California Air Resources Board, and the State Water Resources Board would receive 2.9 million from various special funds and 12 permanent positions in fiscal year 25-26 and ongoing to defend California's environmental laws, programs that advance the state's climate, water, public health, and overall environmental priorities in response to the increased federal legal challenges. The Water Board's portion is $800,000 and 3 permanent positions. The Water Rights Fund is one of 4 Water Board funds that $200,000 will be equally spread to. The other 2 fee funds are the Waste Discharge Permit Fund and the Safe Drinking Water Account. And the 4th fund is the Underground Storage Tank Cleanup Fund, and it is a non-fee fund. And if you would like any more information on this BCP, you can follow the link that's attached in the handout. And I will hand it back to David.
Hey, thank you, Cassandra. Thank you, Jackie. Yeah, I do want to just highlight a couple of items here on the cost drivers. So back in September of 2024, when we went to the board, with a fee setting budget of $38.8 million. Based on what's in the May revise right now, based on these reductions, our fee setting budget has been reduced by $1.1 million. A couple of things, as John mentioned, not every fund took an equally kind of reduction, but each of the funds basically does have an impact with what we refer to as our overall overhead and indirect cost. And so that's one reason why our overall state operation is going down in the fund. And then pro rata is basically our cost for other state agencies that do activities, of course, for the water board that the Department of Finance allocates to all of our funds and all departments. These budget drills, these reductions, these have been allocated to all departments and all agencies. So, they're seeing a reduction. So with that reduction, it basically equals to us having a lower pro rata cost. So we're definitely seeing, some reduction there. The other thing I want to highlight on here too is as kind of mentioned in the past that the SGMA, the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act budget is authorized in the Water Rights Fund. And for 25-26, there's a technical BCP in the May revised, which is including a loan from the Underground Storage Tank Cleanup Fund of approximately $5.4 million. And to continue, the implementation of the SGMA program here at the Water Board. It is also authorized that we pay that back within a 3-year period. So if you were to look at the total Water Rights Fund budget within the Department of Finance, it's roughly around $43 million. But what we've done here is we've carved it out because, again, the SGMA fee revenue is deposited into the Water Rights Fund, and the SGMA expenditures are tracked within the Water Rights Fund. The SGMA revenue cannot be used to support water rights activities and vice versa. Water rights fees cannot be used to support, SGMA activities. Therefore, again, we account for the items separately. And you'll see that a little more distinction when we go in and we start discussing the Water Rights Fund condition. And again, it's footnoted here. So I'm going to pause here and to see if there's any questions on the Water Rights Fund cost drivers. Okay, so I don't see any questions right now, and I don't see any questions online. One thing I wanted to highlight, I wanted to kind of mention this at the beginning, and I'll also mention this at the end. As we go through these spreadsheets and after this meeting, if you have any questions, if you want, more description or you want to know more about, what these tables mean, don't hesitate to reach out to myself, to Jackie, to Cassandra, or John, and we'll do our best to help answer your questions. So with that said, let's go ahead and move to the next slide. And hopefully, you may have to decrease it there, Gary, just so we can get the whole thing on the screen. I want to see the fund balance, the reserves. If you can make it one more bigger, that would be great. Okay, I think that'll do there. So the top balance here is basically reflecting the Water Rights Fund, its revenues, and comparing it with its expenditures and representing its ending balance. To kind of paint a picture, when we look at actuals for 23-24, we had a adjusted balance of about $8.1 million. So that was our adjusted beginning balance. Our total revenues were $32.2 million, and our expenditures came in at $27.4 million. And this has basically created a prudent fund reserve, definitely higher than what we usually generally have in the Water Rights Fund. One main reason for this being this high, and it reflected also on the Waste Discharge Permit Fund and also the Safe Drinking Water account, is, as John mentioned, with these reduction drills, we had to put in internal measures basically to mainly put freezes on some of our hiring And as a result, that helped us with some salary savings. We knew the drills were coming, and we were, working on ensuring that we had enough resources or amounts to direct to the reduction drills. And so as a result, part of the expenditures being less than what they are normally was mainly because we put these freezes in place so we can hold our expenditures down. However, of course, what that did was, of course, built us a higher than normal fund reserve. So looking at our 24-25 budget moving forward, our projected revenue is roughly around 35.8 million, and our expenditures are 37.9 million. So what's happening though is we do have a structural deficit taking place. Now, I do want to mention one thing. The expenditure numbers at this point are what we refer to as like a budgeted number. So it's the authorized total budget in the program. As we start to end the fiscal year, accounting starts to close our books. We start to get the accurate reports on our total expenditures. So I do expect our expenditures to be lower than what is shown right now. With that said, though, when you look at our total budget compared to our revenue, we start to have what's we known as a structural deficit. So our expenditures are exceeding our revenue by roughly around $2.1 million. What that does, it draws down our ending balance. So what's happening basically is we're using our reserves to help offset our expenditures, and it also, of course, draws the reserve down, which is something that we definitely do use as a tool when we do manage the funds. Is if there is a prudent reserve, we have an option. We have an alternative and an option to utilize some of the reserve to help offset expenditures and minimize the need for fee increases. So looking at 25-26, moving forward, what we're saying here is okay, well, if we don't do any fee increases and we basically keep our fees where they're at based on kind of total number of water rights permits, kind of projecting out application revenue, and then comparing that with what our total expenditures are going to be for 25-26, we still have a structural deficit about $1.9 million. And again, what is happening is the reserve is offsetting that deficit. So looking at 25-26, again, the last column is, well, if we had to do fee changes, how much additional revenue would we need to cover our expenses? And it's roughly around, I believe, about $1.8 to $2 million, which basically comes out to needing about 5% more additional revenue in the fund. And there's multiple ways that we could drive to that. We did have a process in place where we were at one time just charging the per acre foot charge and raising that by a percentage. I think now we're in a better position where we could have an opportunity to spread percentages across all of our fees, and it would help generate that additional revenue. Nothing that I'm proposing at this time, but what I'm looking at right now is we definitely would need about additional 5% in revenue to balance basically total revenues with expenditures in 25-26. With that said, it still puts us in a prudent fund reserve around 29%. Normally, and I, we talked about this in some of our other funds. A fund this size, we try to maintain roughly around a 10% reserve. And so, when we, after our whole stakeholder process, and we listen to feedback and comments and so forth, we do prepare options that we start to discuss with our board members with, and part of that would be utilizing some of the reserve. One, do we draw down the reserve to help offset, minimize, or actually even reduce fees for 25, 26? Or do we let it kind of like carry over for the next year? Again, to kind of minimize and streamline fees and glide in the need for more additional revenue in the upcoming fiscal years. So definitely things that, for those that participate in these meetings, you kind of heard this, how we manage the fund. But definitely we'll, keep that under consideration. Again, we definitely listen to comments. And, we recognize that, again, I want to say this too, that these numbers are based on the May revise. Things could change. But again, based on the May revise, based on budgeted numbers, knowing that, 24, 25, we should see lower expenditures based on actual expenditures that'll come through our accounting office. We'll be updating this spreadsheet, and at our next meeting on July 31st. At that time, hopefully we have an enacted budget that's signed, and finance has provided the numbers, and we'll be able to update the fund condition. And then one thing I wanted to highlight on here, as you scroll down on this fund condition, the bottom line here basically is kind of what we're representing is we're saying that that there is a loan for the underground storage tank cleanup fund that if approved in 25, 26, there'll be additional authority of $5.4 million. And so we just wanted to basically represent that that's how the Sigma program is going to be supported. And once the revenue comes in, we'll be able to track it and compare that, of course, with the loan. And we'll the loan, if the money comes in that fiscal year, we'll wait for direction from finance. Most likely, they're going to basically tell us to transfer it from the water rights fund back to the underground storage tank cleanup fund on an annual basis. It just kind of depends on the stream of the revenue flow from Sigma and then to the direction of Department of Finance that we receive. So I know that's a lot of information, but I do wanted to open up the questions if anyone has any questions or comments at this time. Hey, good afternoon, Bob. You have your hand up?
Good afternoon. Yes.
And Bob, since you're the first stakeholder, anyone that does have questions or comments, please introduce yourself and who you represent.
I'm Bob Gore from the Gualco Group, and I represent the cities of Fresno, Long Beach, Woodland, Antioch, Santa Cruz, Modesto Irrigation District, Kings River Entities, Kern County Water, San Bernardino Valley Municipal Water District, and a number of others that are in my email. I believe we should, when you make a recommendation to the board, share the wealth this year and invest some of the our reserve, into lowering a proposed fee increase for two reasons. One, it's equitable. Two, the Department of Finance, as we've discussed prior, routinely conducts fund sweeps in times of deficits. Though they have never touched our reserves, they may be tempted to do so. It's an easy grab. And since the percentage is well in excess of the 5% Department of Finance usually recommends for such reserves, again, I'd seek that we invested in reducing or entirely eliminating any proposed fee increase. And just to formalize it, we remain opposed to the BCP because it's not a proper use of fee payers funds, both because it's general fund and also because the situation is temporary, not permanent. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Good afternoon, Stephen. You have your hand up?
Yes, I do. Sorry, I got to get my mic on there. I concur with a number of the things that Bob said there, but also had a question on the water board state operations. I know looking at it for the 24-25 year, those are budget numbers, not actual. And listening to Department of Finance and some of the documents that have been coming out, the state's budget woes are looking to be several years into the future. is it realistic to expect water board state operations to bounce back to those levels in these coming years? If it does not, that enhances the fund reserve to even greater levels. So I'm kind of curious about that. I'm not sure if you have an answer for that right now, but I'm just asking, is that realistic? And then support reducing these fund reserves to something that's less attractive to being swept by the Department of Finance for funding other state activities. And that's my comment or question at this point. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the reductions that we've done through the two budget letter drills are intended to be permanent. So we're treating them that way. We're considering them to be permanent and not going to be bouncing back, at least not immediately. And then yeah, I will say after this meeting, well, not after this meeting, but at some point in the process, after we get the final budget approval from the governor and the legislature, we'll be meeting with our board members themselves to present this data or the final data based on the final budget, and then asking them what their preferences would be in terms of any budget adjustments that they would like to see. Specifically with the reserve, we talk to them every year about the reserve. Do we want to set it high? Do we want to set it low? Do we want to if it's a high reserve, do we want to use that money to bring down the fees a little bit, or do we want to use it as a buffer against any sudden increases in the future? So we do talk to them, and I guess that's a long-winded way of saying we'll talk to them as the program or excuse me, as the policymakers and see what they want to do.
And just
Thank you.
one thing also to add that, we can't speak for 26, 27 because we don't know what the budget change proposals may be in that year. But for 25, 26, there are no budget change proposals that are adding any additional positions at this time. And as John mentioned, that those two reduction drills are meant to be permanent reductions. Hopefully that answers your question, Stephen.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. I'm checking the emails and there's no questions online. So let's go ahead and move off. Oh, there we go. Hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly. Kasha, your hand is raised.
Yes, thank you. I don't know if this is the appropriate time, or maybe it is better to wait to the open discussion. So please stop me if this is not the time, but we wanted to just address the fee increases. My name is Kasha Hunt, and I'm a policy advisor at Nossaman, providing comments on behalf of Eastern Tule Groundwater Sustainability Agency, located within the Tule subbasin. As the state board members had heard from our subbasin landowners during a recent site visit, our landowners are already paying significant fees to fund the GSA, in addition to any penalty fees that may apply to them for overdrafting groundwater. And since our groundwater sustainability plan was deemed deficient by the Department of Water Resources in 2023, the required monitoring and enforcement actions have significantly increased our costs. Due to these increased costs, Eastern Tule has had to increase fees for our landowners. And the increased cost of SGMA implementation paired with additional increased fees from the state would only further harm the financial stability of the subbasin's landowners. Eastern Tule has worked diligently with our landowners to gain trust and participation in the fee structure, and the threat of additional fees the landowners could result in rejection or non-compliance of either the GSA fees, the state fees, or both. We are working closely with our subbasin and state staff to address all outstanding deficiencies and exit the state intervention as quickly as we can. So today we're just asking that you consider not increasing any state fees and to allow us to continue the good work that we're doing to maintain local implementation of SGMA.
Thank you, Kasha. So we do have a Sigma line item, right, on the agenda here in a moment. And so I'll have, after we go, the program staff and Natalie Stork goes through her presentation, then we'll have kind of further discussion or program staff can address your comment.
Thank you.
No problem. So let's go ahead and move to the next slide. Or the agenda itself. So the next agenda item is a potential fee change proposal. Again, has to do with our Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. We have program staff. We also have Aaron Ragazzi from the Assistant Deputy Director of Division of Water Rights is on, along with David Rose from the Office of Chief Counsel. And there is a slide here that we're going to put up right now. There we go. And I'm going to just toss this to Aaron. I think Aaron's mic will need to be unmuted there.
Actually, Parker's going to provide the overview of the slides.
Okay. So we will have Parker go ahead and go over the slide here. So I guess you could go ahead, Parker.
Yeah. Thank you for having us today. And my name is Parker Thaler, and I'm the program manager for the Water Quality Certification Program in the Division of Water Rights. And as Dave mentioned, our program handles the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, or FERC, hydroelectric project water quality certifications. Can we go to the next slide? And so we were providing conceptual level proposals for discussion today, 3 potential fee changes, and those are outlined here. The first one is related to amendments, and the proposal would be to increase the annual fee from $1,000 to $10,000 with no change in the kilowatt charge. Our second proposal relates to when the State Water Board is the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA lead agency. And under this proposal, we would charge an additional fee during the pre-licensing phase of FERC projects when we are the CEQA lead agency. And the third one would be for a temporary suspension of fees. And this would be in very specific circumstances that would occur when a notice of intent had been filed with FERC and a draft or final license application has not been submitted within 5 years of the NOI. And so fees would pause after that period, but fees would resume when a draft or a final license application is submitted.
So Parker, Aaron, related to the first 2 items, amendments and the CEQA fee, a lot of it's based on, if you guys want to maybe highlight this too, a lot of it's based on our staff cost, right? So it takes time to do the amendments. If we become the lead agency, it takes time for us to do the CEQA documents. So what we're trying to do, of course, is recover our staff cost.
Right. Yeah, so in all of these cases, these are items we've looked at and felt would potentially be appropriate in line with reflecting staff workload and costs associated with implementing the program. And we wanted to provide these today to receive any high-level feedback or thoughts folks had on these ideas. Obviously, they are not fully fleshed out. And so if folks have ideas or thoughts, we're really interested in hearing them. And that's the last slide, so we don't have another, that's our last slide.
Okay. Stephen, you have your hand up?
Yeah, these are kind of one-time application type fees, not really annual going forward fees, right?
So as a little bit of background, similar to water rights fees, the Water Quality Certification Program collects fees on an annual basis. And there are 2 basic types of fees for these projects. There's a pre-licensing fee that is implemented on an annual basis, typically from about the time that a notice of intent is filed until FERC acts on the request and issues a new license. So that's the pre-licensing phase. And then there's a post-licensing phase that is associated with, once FERC issues the license, the ongoing oversight of implementation of that new certification and that new FERC license. Did that answer your question?
So yeah, I recognize there is that ongoing component, but the amendments would be more like a one-time fee, correct?
So the amendments, so the amendment would be going from 1,000 to 10,000. Typically, an amendment is going to be processed within a year, so it will be a one-time fee.
Okay.
The
And then the lead agency,
CEQA
same kind of thing.
the CEQA fee, that could be a one-time fee, or that could be an annual fee during that pre-licensing phase. Again, we're just talking conceptual right now, so we don't have anything like pre-programmed in our heads right now about that.
Okay, thank you. That's what I was looking for.
Is your hand still up, or is that a legacy hand?
I meant to take it down, so.
Okay, great. Okay, David, thank you for the opportunity today. If folks have thoughts after the meeting today, we're happy to talk with them about those thoughts, and they can reach out directly to Parker or myself.
Aaron, do you want to give maybe 2 weeks for comments, written comments if
Yeah. That
okay.
sounds great. And obviously they don't need to come to Parker. They can go to the email address that David put up earlier, because that's going to be that's going to get to all the people that need to get it. So
Exactly. So I'm trying to look at the calendars right now. Today's the 11th, so maybe someone help me out. But in 2 weeks, which would of course land on a Wednesday, I think that's what, the 25th. Let's maybe have comments sent to the water rights fee at waterboards.ca.gov and regarding this item here on the FERC proposals.
or reach out if you have questions in advance of that.
Exactly, and reach out to Aaron or Parker.
Thanks, David.
No problem. I wanted to, before we move on to the other item, we did have a email question that came in, and it was related to the fund reserve, related to the water rights fund. And I will read the question here. It says, your forecast of 24-25 and 25-26 water board state operation expenditures of 33.8 and 34.1 million seem high relative to the actual expenditures of 24.1 million in 23-24 and likely ongoing spending cuts. It does not seem prudent to contemplate a further increase in water rights fees, and expenditures are likely to be lower, and the fund reserve is already much higher than a 10% reasonable amount. And I recognize this is more or less a comment. This is coming in from Nicholas McCarvich, who is a consultant for PG&E. And so, yes, in 23-24, we're showing an actual expenditures of $24.1 million. And however, the actual budget at that time was roughly around 31 million. So, and as I mentioned, in that year and also in 24-25, which again, we're showing a budgeted number, and I do expect those expenditures to be lower. There have been measures put in place to generate and to create a salary savings. Again, based on the administration and the request to do the reductions, we had to again freeze our hiring practices, which does create some salary savings because we knew we had to give up some funding in these reduction drills. So we do recognize that it did create lower expenditures than normal. So again, with the at the next meeting based on what we see in the enacted budget, along with our accounting reports, we should be able to kind of true up the picture and to evaluate where we're at. And we do recognize that, anything over a 10% reserve, we do, take into consideration of what some options could be to, of course, to draw it down to roughly 10%. And with that said, as kind of John mentioned earlier, it's a policy decision that our board would consider. Staff will give them some options, and then the board will kind of consider and make a decision on how they want to use the reserve. Okay, I don't see here. Don't see any other questions on the forum right now and on the email comments. So let's go back to the agenda, and we're going to move to the next item, which is the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act, better known as SGMA. And we have a presentation with also program staff. And I'm going to highlight Natalie on the presentation here. And we'll pull up the presentation here in a moment.
Good afternoon. I'm Natalie Stork. I'm the director for the Office of Sustainable Groundwater Management here at the State Water Board. And I'm presenting today on a concept for updating our current SGMA fees. Next slide, please. This staff presentation will cover background on our fees, our proposal, a concept, but a proposal we're sharing today, challenges with regarding our fee structure, steps moving forward, and then we'll take questions. Next slide, please. The State Water Board has the authority to protect groundwater resources through state intervention and collect extraction reports and fees when either occur. When there are areas of SGMA basins that are not managed by a groundwater sustainability agency, or when the State Water Board finds that a basin's management is deficient and designates the basin as probationary at a hearing. There are currently 2 basins that are designated probationary, the Tulare Lake and Tule subbasins. Staff are currently prohibited from collecting reports or fees from pumpers in the Tulare Lake subbasin due to an injunction by the Kings County Superior Court. But this could change if and when other court actions occur in the future. The current SGMA fee schedule was adopted initially in 2017 and then adjusted last year due to the potential to overcollect. Fees were cut in half last year from $40 to $20 per acre foot of groundwater pumped. Board members requested that staff consider potential impacts to small farmers at one of our hearings last year. As such, staff have a concept of shifting from a flat rate to a graduated fee structure. Next slide, please. So our current, or some information on our concept. The required revenue for our program, first of all, is about $5.5 million per year, which was shared earlier during this meeting. The current fee right now, as it is in our fee regulation, is $300 per well, plus $20 per acre foot of groundwater extracted. Regarding the $5.5 million per year revenue amount, the program requires approximately this much money per year. It doesn't have to be collected in the same year and can be collected over a period of several years. And staff has been One thing to note is we've been working on these probationary basins for at least 2 years now without any fee collection. So the current projected revenue for water year 2025, based on our current fee structure, and assuming we only collect reports and fees from the Tule subbasin, is currently projected to be 6.4 million. We do have a concept for a new fee structure. In the current concept, there's no change to the base fee, and there could potentially be a graduated fee structure with higher fees for individuals who pump more groundwater. There's no changes proposed for any other element of the SGMA extraction and reporting fees. So we're not proposing to change the $300 base fee per well. So going forward, talking about this concept, I'll be focusing on the per acre foot fees. And one thing I want to emphasize is we're also not proposing to change the current fee waivers. There are currently fee waivers available for low-income individuals, community water systems serving disadvantaged communities, and schools if reports are submitted on time. More information on how to request a waiver will be released later this year once we get closer to the reporting deadline and the bills going out for fees. Next slide, please. Here is the proposed fee schedule that staff are currently scoping. Generally, this would change, if adopted, our current flat fee schedule to a graduated fee schedule. In this concept, there are 5 equal volume brackets for all pumping in the subbasin. Fees would increase as someone pumps more, similar to tax brackets. And the first 2 acre feet would have no volumetric charge. Then up to 305 acre feet per individual would be charged at $5 per acre foot. Pumping in the next bracket is charged at $9 per acre foot. So if you pump 306 acre feet, only 1 acre foot is charged at that $9 value, and so on through the 5th bracket. Importantly, this reduces fees for almost all of the pumpers in the basin, and we expect that there are probably over 4,000 people pumping groundwater in the basin. And this would raise the fees for a small number of people compared to our current fee schedule. The top bracket in this proposal is $40 per acre foot, which was our original fee before we changed it last year. This would bring in about the same amount of revenue as our current flat fee structure of $20 per acre foot. Next slide, please. So here's an example. If someone pumps 1,000 acre feet of water in 1 year, the total charged for each volume bracket is shown here. And as you can see, the total fee is lower under the proposal. Next slide, please. Here's an example at 2,669 acre feet. Anyone who extracts under this amount would be charged less under this concept than under the current flat fee of $20 per acre foot. Next slide, please. Thank you. SGMA state intervention is a new board program with different legislative fee authority than other fee-funded programs, resulting in significant unknowns, whether, when, and how many basins may be declared probationary, how long a basin may require state intervention, extraction levels in each basin, and the potential timing of reporting and fee payments. We developed this concept based on best available data, but that data is evapotranspiration data that doesn't specify whether water is used for groundwater or surface water. We needed to make several assumptions in order to develop this concept, and we will need more data and information to evaluate impacts on individual pumpers. Next slide, please. So moving forward, revenue is deposited in the Water Rights Fund and is only authorized for SGMA work regarding state intervention. Fee unit staff will regularly monitor SGMA fee revenue and any reserves from prior collections as part of the annual review of the Water Rights Fund. And that is the close of our presentation.
Thank you, Natalie. We'll open it up to any questions. Good afternoon, Kasha.
So
Okay,
this
ready.
was clearly the more appropriate part for me to add my comments.
I was gonna stop you, but
I apologize. I
No problem.
apologize. Clearly, I was not paying close enough attention. So anyway, we do reiterate, coming from the Eastern Tule, as you know, we're in probation, and all fees do put an added burden on our landowners, and it does trickle down and puts things at jeopardy. And we are moving along and trucking along, and would just hope that we can keep that going. So that's our ask today, is to not increase fees.
Thank you. Appreciate the comment. Catherine, good afternoon. You have your hand up.
Hi there, my name is Catherine Van Dyke. I'm with Community Alliance with Family Farmers, also known as CAF, and we really support this proposed structure for revised SGMA fees. This will support the capacity of small and mid-sized family farmers to comply with fees and reflects an equitable approach to fees based on water usage, since a flat fee of $20 per acre foot can have a disproportionate impact on small-scale growers with incredibly thin profit margins. So we thank you for your time and work on this topic.
Thank you. Thank you for your comment. Deanna, good afternoon. You have your hand up.
Yes, good afternoon. Deanna Jackson, Tri-County Water Authority, which is a groundwater sustainability agency in both Tule and Tulare Lake. Well, we haven't seen this before, so I'm wondering what is the timeline for written comments, and what year this would take effect? Would this take effect for those who are recording their groundwater use for this year?
So we can take comments at any time. We're here at the stakeholder meeting to share this concept and solicit feedback. So we'd really appreciate any feedback that you have. We can discuss afterwards, written comments, that's fine. Regarding the timeline, so we're sharing this concept here today, and with the current water rights fee schedule, fees are scheduled to go before the board for adoption on September 16th. And if we have any changes to our SGMA fees, if we do change to this concept or something similar to it, those would be in effect before the reports happen. And so they would apply to anyone who is completing their first cycle of reporting and paying fees in the Tule subbasin this year.
Okay, thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
How about, as we mentioned with the FERC, how about we do a 2-week comment period for June 25th? Of course, it's kind of informal, but it gives us an opportunity to receive comments. Definitely because we want that input, but also we'll have further discussions at the next fee meeting. And you can send them to the water rights fees waterboards.ca.gov website, and of course they'll be submitted to Natalie and her group. Johnny, you have your hand up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I had a question on, I'm Johnny Gailey with the South Fork Kings GSA in the Tulare Lake Subbasin. And I was wondering on the way that the accounting happens for the costs related to the SGMA. Are these fees only being used to cover the basins that are actually in probation, or will this be covering the entire SGMA department within the state board?
So Stigma directs the state water board to recover the cost of state intervention via fees. So the fees that are collected will be used for the program as a whole, not for any specific basin. But I just want to note, we're not doing any work on the Tulare Lake subbasin at this time in accordance with the injunction.
Yeah, that's understood. Just to clarify, subbasins such as like Chowchilla, Kauai, Kern, are the costs related to those subbasins also being covered by these fees, or is that the intention?
So the fees that we collect, we are not constrained to only collecting fees exactly for the amount that was spent in the current year or prior year. We can have several used to recoup the cost of our program on average. So in essence, yes, fees that are collected support the program as a whole, and our program has been working in 6 basins at this time, 6 basins previously, and may be 7 basins in the future pending decisions with the courts.
And
Thank
I
you.
think it's important to note, I was just going to add, I think it's important to note, Natalie, also over the last few years, the program's been supported by general fund, knowing that, of course, the bases haven't come in and the fee revenue hasn't come in. And again, that's what the budget change proposal is doing, is basically moving us off of general fund and allocating funding from our internal underground storage tank cleanup fund, and we're using a loan from there. Once the revenues comes in, of course, then we repay back that cleanup fund.
Okay, I just want to, further comment. I want to, what one of the previous commenter from Eastern Tule said is, any imposed fees is going to create some confusion for the landowners. They already are starting to pay fees to the GSAs and having to comply with the GSA. We're here at the South Fork Kings, we've implemented a well registration program, and we're finding there's confusion already from previous letters that went out for the state water board years program versus our own internal program. And so people are saying, oh, well, I've already registered. Do I need to do it again? They're starting to be confused on who they're actually responsible to. So I do have concerns about if these fees do become implemented in Tulare Lake, if it's going to hurt compliance on a whole. So just wanted to make that comment.
Thank you. One thing I would like to note is that we've already adopted the fee schedule that is $20 per acre foot. And if it's not changed, that will apply for this coming water year. And so this concept that we're focused on today would change the fee schedule itself, not so that it applies to more people or less people, but so that the actual amount of fees collected is less or greater, depending on how much groundwater is pumped. But we welcome your feedback. Thank you.
Thank you. Bob, you're next. Your hand's raised.
It indeed was and should be lowered now. Natalie or David, if you could post that presentation, it would be very nice, perhaps on the fee payers webpage, along with all the other materials. It was simple and to the point, and I appreciate Natalie's data. I also appreciate the fact it's a general fund loan, or that's a loan that'll be repaid by the general funds. And thanks for posting that.
Yes, we'll work with the fees team to figure out the most appropriate place to post it. Thank you.
I'm looking right now if there's any other questions. I don't see any at this time. And looking, any other questions on the email related to Sigma? Okay, no online questions. Thank you, Natalie. I appreciate it. And as Natalie mentioned, we'll coordinate together and get those slides posted onto the Water Board's fee webpage. And I wanted to circle back. Well, we're going to move into open discussion now. There was another follow-up question that came in from Nicholas. And I'll read the question. How high would the additional water quality certification fee be during the pre-licensing phase when the Water Board serves as the lead CEQA agency? And would it also be based on installed capacity kilowatts? And I will
can jump in, David, if you
and
want.
David Rose here from the Office of Chief Counsel is going to respond to this question.
The simple answer or non-answer is that we don't have a proposal in that regard yet. But again, we wanted to float the concept today and get any feedback. So if you have feedback, like a recommendation that goes in a particular way, we'd be happy to consider that and then consider working it up further for the July 31st fee stakeholder meeting to get further comments. So nothing more than the concept that we've identified here today. It's really meant to reflect a workload, and how it does that can go in multiple ways. Hope that's helpful. I know it's not an answer, but that's because there isn't one yet.
Thank you, David. So at this time, again, we're in item number 6, open discussion. If anyone wants to discuss anything related to, of course, the Water Rights Fund, any of our proposals, and of course, where we go from here. And I don't see any questions or comments coming up. Okay, so of course, next steps in the process is our next water rights fee stakeholder meeting is scheduled for July 31st. That's followed, of course, by staff taking a proposal to the board for consideration and adoption at the September 16th board meeting. Those that have been involved in the process, there's a 10-day comment period. So the agenda will be posted, 10 days prior to the September 16th board meeting to see staff's proposals at that time. Again, I want to mention that, the numbers today were based on the May revise. I definitely recommend that to continue to follow the state's budgeting process. Again, as John mentioned earlier, there'll be some closed door with the legislators and of course the administration to kind of go over the May revise, which then kind of gets hashed out what'll become the enacted budget. And so definitely there may be some changes coming. So and if whatever happens, we'll go ahead and we'll update those numbers and we'll present them at the July 31st meeting based on the Budget Act. With that, I noticed John kind of popped back on. So I'll let John give some closing comments here.
Yeah, thank you, David. Yeah, I just wanted to thank everybody again for spending a few minutes this afternoon with us, and to reiterate the fact that if you have any questions as you go over the handouts or something else, it doesn't really matter what it is related to fees, don't hesitate to reach out to David and Cassandra and I, and we'd be happy to either meet with you privately or meet with you via email or whatever to answer your questions. So thanks again, everybody.
Thank you, John. And just again, reminder, just kind of 2 action items that we have here. Based on our 2 proposals, one for FERC and then one for Sigma, we're asking that to provide comments by June 25th And you can send those again to waterrightsfees@waterboards.ca.gov. Again, we want to thank everyone today for taking the time and everyone's feedback and input. We appreciate it. This process can't work without you, the stakeholders. Look forward to seeing each of you at the next fee stakeholder meeting. And we'll adjourn for now. And everyone have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.